So Ash, it's been a little bit dire lately with just non-stop talk about killing studios, killing physical games. It's made me quite sad about where the industry is going right now. But PlayStation 2 always exists, and we can always return to the PS2. And it's one of the most robust and interesting libraries of any system, where like you can walk into a game store, see some random game you've never heard of, and it's probably going to be pretty good. And especially because in its era, there were many games that didn't review so well, either because they were a bit strange or just weren't what people expected or whatever else. But years later, people have come to realize actually are fantastic. So it's hard to define exactly what a hidden gem is all these years on, because people have discussed PS2 hidden gems to death. So we'll try our best to identify what we think is a hidden gem. But really, we're just going to talk about a bunch of really cool PS2 games. But before we do, first, a word from our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by Raycon. Since picking my pair up late last year, I've been a massive fan of Raycon's bone conduction headphones. Their off-ear audio design, which sends sound vibrations through your bones, leaves my ears open and lets me play games, catch up on videos, or listen to my favorite music without tuning out everything around me. Their 13-hour battery life, IP68 waterproof and dustproof rating, and light design that doesn't slip has me reaching for them every time I leave the house, too. I use my Raycons every day, whether I'm gaming, editing, or relaxing, and my wife liked them so much she even got her own pair. Raycon's bone conduction headphones are my absolute favorites. Don't believe me? Try them for yourself with their 30-day happiness guarantee and find out what all the fuss is about while supporting GVG in the process. The bone conduction headphones are a great option for everyday listening. Click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/GVGBC to get 20% off. And thanks again to Raycon for sponsoring today's video.
All right. Well, again, by today's standards, it's hard to say what really straddles the line between, unknown or maybe known to a degree, but haven't actually played it. This might be in the middle, but I have this in my own library, actually. Mr. Mosquito.
Yes.
And I know you've heard of this one. Yeah. Mr. Mosquito is really exactly what it sounds like. You play as the titular Mr. Mosquito, and it's basically your job to be this unsuspecting mosquito flying around this Japanese family's home and just trying to do what mosquitoes do, which is suck their blood without getting swatted. And it has that chaotic Katamari Damacy energy that I just love to see in video games. It's just really wacky and goofy and weird. The odds are obviously stacked against you because you are but a diminutive little mosquito. Press play to Jason in our live audience chat said it perfectly. Mr. Mosquito is a strange game in the best of ways. Again, much like Katamari Damacy. And unlike Katamari, though, it never really caught on outside of its own kind of initial release for whatever reason. And I'm kind of sad maybe they ran Katamari into the ground a little bit too much, but still, this is something I would have loved to see brought forward as a concept and re-explored on future consoles. But alas, Mr. Mosquito is really all we got, but it is still a hidden gem of a PS2 game.
It's such a funny game, and there's nothing else like this one. Being a tiny mosquito and flying around like full-scale humans, it's a bit weird. Like, you got to a girl's leg, and you feel uncomfortably close. You gotta put your little mosquito nose into her leg, suck out the blood by like rotating the analog stick.
Right.
But there's also like slight puzzles to every room as well. Like, you can like get the girl up by like slamming into the radio to distract her. Or there's like other things you can find around the room. It's there's a lot of fun to just exploring. It's like a weird mix of stealth and point and click, and then almost like fishing when you're trying to suck the blood out. It's like fishing in Sonic Adventure. You got to try and stay in that circle the entire time.
Except in this case, unlike Big, if you screw up, you're dead. You actually die. You lose your life. So the stakes are much higher here in Mr. Mosquito.
Yeah. But legitimately, it's a weird game, but it is a fun game.
Yeah.
This was actually published by Sony as well, and they published a lot in the PS2 era, both in terms of developing games and publishing games, way more than they do today. And another really cool one that they published was Flipnic. Do you know what Flipnic is, Ash?
Yes. I was actually talking about this with a friend the other day.
Yeah, Flipnic Ultimate Pinball. One of the coolest pinball games I've ever played. It's almost got this sort of therapeutic tone to it, where everything's all like another realm of existence. It feels like you're pinballing around in this serene setting. Lots of weird stuff going on. Sometimes there's UFOs that come down. Sometimes you're taking on all these other things. It's always changing. That's the real thing to Flipnic. Like one moment you're just playing regular pinball, and the next you're taken to an entirely different sub-game. And it's just constantly giving you something new. And yeah, like today you'd never see Sony publish a pinball game. But this one is just such a cool hidden gem that I rarely hear people talk about.
Yeah, this is not one that I've personally played. I've heard of it over the years, and as I said, I was just talking with a friend about this earlier this week. And I had a feeling you'd have it on your list, because it just seemed very much to me like a John game. Yeah. Very much. So, and I was like, yeah, no, this is going to be on his list. And by all accounts, it should be. Like I said, I haven't played it myself, but it's something I've always heard about and have wanted to experience before. And one of these days, maybe I'll get to. But maybe next time I visit you over in the UK, I can check it out with you.
There's always a day for Flipnic. Never write
exactly.
it off.
No,
One
it
day
looks really cool. I'm looking through screenshots and stuff right now, and yeah, I don't know why I never heard about it in its day, at the time, but I'm sad I didn't, because it looks so cool.
Yeah. All right, throw us another one.
John, have you ever played an action game where one of your finishers is literally just spanking people to death?
God Hand!
Hell yeah, God Hand. You know, God Hand is one of the wackiest character action games I've ever played. It's just pure chaos. And as I said, one of the many crazy, wacky, over-the-top finishers you can do is just rapid spanking baddies to death. And then they just go flying away into the sky. And the whole game carries that really wild, over-the-top, chaotic energy. And this is one that I played a decent amount of, but I ended up actually watching my best friend at the time just play, because he really fell in love with it. I really liked it, but he fell in love and just really excelled at it. So I played it, and I really enjoyed it. But oftentimes I would just sit back and watch him play and just watch all the chaotic carnage just go off everywhere. And it was pretty magical.
This one's kind of known today for IGN giving it like a 3 out of 10 or something. That's kind of its legacy. But that shouldn't be the legacy, though, because it's such a fun and weird little game. Like every boss you encounter is just crazy. Like their character designs, their personality, they're all nuts. And it's one of the few examples of really adapting like a classic beat 'em up to a 3D perspective. It's a little bit different to something like Devil May Cry. It's a lot more, I guess, similar to. It has more in common with something like Streets of Rage or Golden Axe, I'd say.
Right. And I'm looking at it right now. I completely forgot about the key art for God Hand, but it's literally just this dude getting punched through the mouth, out the back of his head. It's just it's emblematic of the game itself, and it really when you consider this was developed by Clover Studio of all developers, and you think about something like this in tone next to something like Okami, like it really shows just how diverse and capable that studio was of delivering experiences with just completely different tones. It's wild.
Yeah, it's definitely that era of like Capcom just giving us a new level. We had like Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, and this was done by Shinji Mikami as well. God hand.
Right.
So the legacy is there, the talent is there. It belongs alongside all those classic Capcom games, but it's one that's just stuck on the PS2.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you find a copy, play it there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is a kind of funny one. So, in the arcades in the late 90s, I'd say the most popular light gun games were Time Crisis and House of the Dead. Yeah. And this is a game that kind of combines them. So, we have a Namco and Sega kind of collaboration with Vampire Knight. This is... If you love House of the Dead 2 particularly, this is like more House of the Dead 2, but not House of the Dead 3. It's House of the Dead 2 in its voice acting, in its engine, in the way it looks, in the UI art. It is House of the Dead 2 with vampires, basically. Namco distributed the arcade cabinet, but there's a PS2 port as well. And it literally is House of the Dead 2 again, but instead of zombies, you've got vampires. It is ridiculously good. There's a little bit more like pinpoint precision than House of the Dead has. So, like, you know, when you rescue humans in House of the Dead, you have to like shoot the zombies near them. In this one, the humans like growing like little eyes or something. You've got to shoot them. So there's points where it's more precise, but the DNA is so dang close that it's like it's a lost cousin of House of the Dead 2 that I never hear anyone talk about. And it's seriously really, really good.
I mean, that's the best elevator pitch you could give anything. The House of the Dead 2 is my favorite light gun shooter of all time. I played through that game an embarrassing number of times on Dreamcast. That game gets everything right in terms of just vibe and cheesiness and goofiness. The voice acting is some of the best, worst, best, however you want to say it, I've ever heard in any game. But it works perfectly for the game. And I think I may have played this a little bit. I don't have nearly as much experience with it as I do the House of the Dead, but you saying it's more House of the Dead 2, but not quite House of the Dead 3 is all I need to hear. Because, 3 and 4, they're fine, but 1 and especially 2 captured a certain just vibe that the others did not catch.
100%.
And yeah, more of that is always welcome for sure.
Yeah. I do want to shout out Time Crisis 2 and 3 as well. They're not really hidden gems, but on PS2, there's a really cool feature that we've covered before, where you can use that funny little port that's next to the USBs to connect 2 PS2s together with 2 TVs, and you can replicate the dual arcade screen setup that way, which is just like the most ideal way of preserving those games. So that's super rad. Not really hidden gems, but I think that feature kind of is. But,
right.
Yeah, let's move on to something else though, Ash. What have you got for us?
Well, I can't let this video go by without shouting out the game that I think probably inspired this video in the first place.
Yes.
John, because and so it's slightly less hidden than it used to be, but it's still pretty hidden. And I have to talk about this game in a game about PS2 hidden gems. Obviously, I'm talking about the one, the only, the great Gitaroo Man. And so this video came about when I basically was like, John, and I spammed the link to the PlayStation Store saying, Gitaroo Man, it's out, man. It's out on the PlayStation Store. Go get it. And, you and I are both big legacy Gitaroo Man fans. And so, like I said, it's a little bit less hidden than it used to be, especially because it's now found new life on the PlayStation Store. But this is one of the pioneering rhythm games, kind of like the original Parappa the Rapper. One of the earlier rhythm games to, kind of whet our appetites for what would become a whole genre later on down the line. But there is no other game I played that is quite as weird, but also like in its own way, but also, heartwarming. Like you kind of want to just get off your couch and start jumping because there's some really epic moments in there. The music is so good. And it's a great little coming of age story. You can beat the whole thing in like an hour, but it is one of the best hours you'll ever experience in your life. And it's a little bit unrefined and maybe a little bit rough to approach compared to present day modern games, kind of like Parappa. It's a little bit rough around the edges. But again, this was a game that was pioneering what would later become a full-fledged genre. And I would not want to live in a world that doesn't have Gitaroo Man in it.
I mean, one of the coolest things about this game is like you're doing like battles. So instead of just doing like rhythm mini games, it's literally like there's a city on collapse behind you while you're on this big battle against another guy, and you're doing these rhythm timings, a little bit like theater rhythm actually, where at some point you've got to like follow with the left stick and guide it along. And then there's another portion where like you're defending, you have to like use the face buttons to defend. So it's this constant back and forth. You've got health bars. Your opponent has a health bar. So you get this like visceral feeling that isn't just tapping to the beat. There's actual stakes and action going on. So it's even today. There's not a whole lot like this one. This is super distinct.
Yeah, and it's like like you said, there's an underlying story. There are emotional stakes to each fight. The characters are really endearing. It's something that's so singular that I think it's worth, even if you don't, you say you don't love rhythm games or you don't have rhythm, at least give it a try. It's only $10 on the PlayStation Store. There's literally nothing else like it out there, and now it is more accessible than it's ever been. And it's just one of those things that you just kind of have to play to experience for yourself, because there just isn't, you could be reductive and say it's a rhythm game. There are other rhythm games out there. But in terms of the art style and the very specific vibe this game has, there really isn't anything else out there quite like it.
And just to fish in some Nintendo fans, some of the talent behind this game went on to do Elite Beat Agents as well.
Right,
so
right. Which
you got to get it for that.
Yeah.
But no, there's just some like wonderful character design, some fantastic art. It's one of the greats. And as I was saying, this was the whole reason we did this video. That game came out,
right?
And we were like, how can we talk about this? Just by talking about other PS2 games as well.
Exactly.
I want to talk about Kuri Mix, which you might know as The Adventures of Cookies and Cream.
Okay, I do know this one.
This is a From Software game. They used to do a lot of different stuff. So obviously they do Dark Souls, but they've also done stuff like Kingsfield, which is like the precursor to Dark Souls, and Kingsfield 4 on PS2 is also fantastic. But this one is fantastic as well. So the core gimmick behind this is you know that Mario Party game where one person's on one side and the other person's on the other side, and you're working together to make it through a platforming gauntlet. You're opening bridges, pressing switches to help them along, doing little conveyor belts. It's that, but a full game of that. You can play it on your own, so like the left stick controls one character, the right stick controls the other character, but it's intended as a co-op game. But literally, it's that Mario Party mini game taken to the max and given a full game. And it's ridiculously unique and fun. And if you're able to get someone else to play with you, I think it's one of the coolest like co-op platformers you can play.
That sounds so fun, honestly. I've seen this around. I think I've seen it on store shelves before, but I haven't played it myself, so I didn't have much frame of reference for what it actually was. But that sounds like it would be a blast.
I believe there might be a DS sequel. Am I making that up? Let's see. Am I making that up? Oh no, there is. It might be Japan only though. Yeah, Kuri DS.
I didn't know that. I never knew there was a sequel to that game.
Yeah, it was somewhere in the back of my mind. It's like, is this on DS as well? Apparently is. Cool. Anyway, give us another one, Ash.
All right, so we don't really get to talk about Tri-Ace very often these days, and I feel a little weird putting anything published by Square Enix under the umbrella of, unknown or hidden gems. But once upon a time, there was a little game called Radiata Stories that I have in my personal collection that was, if not ahead of its time, because Majora's Mask had some of its ideas and did it way before Radiata did, but it just did it in kind of its own weird style. It took place in like a sprawling city. You play as a guy named Jack. He's like a merc for hire, I think, and it takes place in a sprawling city, which is really almost Midgar-like, the main setting that you kind of play around in for the first, at least, little chunk of the game. Finally, you're kind of allowed outside of its borders and you can go explore, but the main thing about this game is just how free-form and kind of open world it is for its time. It's a bit like Klonoa in that all the NPCs in the city have their own schedules, their own personalities, that they just have their own lives that go on without you. And if you want to start certain quest lines, you have to talk to the right NPCs at the right time. For better and worse, this is one of those games where there is no way you're going to find the true ending, and there are multiple endings, but there is like no way you're going to get through the whole game and find everything you want to find without a guide. It just is one of those games, but it's still really unique for what it was, and especially at the time. Like I said, there were at least 2 or 3, I think, different major story paths you go down. You can go down depending on the actions you take during the story. Combat was a weird mix of like, you go to a separate screen, but then it's still kind of 3D action combat and not necessarily turn-based. Reminds you a little bit of the Tales of series, I guess, just a bit. It's been a long time since I played it, of course, but I remember it always just kind of standing out for being just a bit unlike anything else Square Enix had published at the time.
You know, do you want to hear a crime? This game never released in Europe.
I didn't?
It didn't release in Europe. I really want to play it, and I will one day import it, because I've heard so many good things, but it's one that I have not played. That
is a shame. I didn't realize... I mean, I knew other games that hadn't, like Chrono Trigger. God, which is like the worst ever. that didn't release there, at least originally. But I did not know that Radiata Stories didn't make it to the UK. That is a crime.
It is definitely a crime.
You should definitely check it out, though, when you can. It's like I said, it's unlike anything Square was doing, or at least publishing at the time. And you know, Tri-Ace, they're always doing something a little weird, even if it doesn't always turn out into the best game. You know, Metacritic wise, whatever, critically. they're always doing something a little weird, a little off kilter that others don't necessarily try and do quite as much. So, Tri-Ace is always worth a look.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Level 5 a moment, because they were phenomenal in this era. They were phenomenal on the DS, they were phenomenal on the PS2 with Dragon Quest VIII, which is one of the best games on the console. But they had their own original IP with Dark Cloud. And Dark Cloud 1 is great. Dark Cloud 2, though, I didn't play until last year. And I was blown away just by how good it is. It's called Dark Chronicle in Europe for some reason. But it is just ridiculously better than the first one.
Yep.
It does so much more. So it's, for those who don't know what Dark Cloud is, it's kind of a mix of dungeon crawling and town building. So you're going through like those regular sort of like you're mapping out a dungeon as it goes, taking down enemies, that general dungeon crawling stuff. But on the side, you're also building up a town, and you're just like making something from nothing. And it's this brilliant mix of the two like subgenres. But on top of that, you've got a really heartwarming story, some great characters, a brilliant soundtrack. It just does everything, I think, to a better extent than the first one. The first one was like one of the first PS2 games. It's kind of known as like one of the first RPGs on the system. And for a console that's full of RPGs, how do you follow that up and actually be, impactful? I think they managed it. They were super distinct with this one. There's even like a golf mini game. It might not be the best one, but there is a golf mini game in there. And how many RPGs have golf in? They have fishing in, but golf, that's a rarity.
Man, I bounced off Dark Cloud 1 so hard. I was looking forward to it at the time, and then when I finally played it, I was like, nah, this ain't it. I think even at the time, it was being billed as like the big Zelda killer, which, no, it was not.
I think it's just because the outfit was kind of similar to Link, right?
Yeah.
There's no other Zelda parallel, really.
Exactly, yeah, but you're so right. I bounced really hard off Dark Cloud 1, and then a friend let me try their copy of Dark Cloud 2 because I didn't trust it. I was like, no, I've been burned once. Nah, there are other games I can look at and spend my hard-earned money on. But then I played their copy, and I was like, oh, no. As you just said, John, this is a massive improvement in every way. There was a lot more going on story-wise, too, where the first one just didn't have much going on in that department, so there wasn't much to motivate you to push forward, whereas Dark Cloud 2 had much more just kind of going on in general, not just with story, but just gameplay systems, and it just felt a lot more refined than the first iteration of the series.
For sure. And we don't really see games like this anymore. Like, when's the last time we got a major dungeon crawler? It doesn't really happen these days.
True.
Yeah, it's definitely one that's kind of exists in its time, and it's still as great as it ever was, so give it a chance when you can. Apparently it's on PS Plus Classics as well, so check that out if you can.
I didn't realize that was on Classics. Nice. Okay, cool.
Nor did I. So very nice to know.
All right. We know the saying, give the people what they want. Natalie in live audience mentioned a little bit ago, one of these times Ash is going to name the Bouncer. And I did have that on my list. I have to talk about the Bouncer, of course. Again, this feels weird talking about something that was made by Squaresoft at the time. Yeah. But the Bouncer is what you get if you cross, a beat 'em up with anime and Tetsuya Nomura's character designs at the time. And, there are certain games whose sound clips just live in your head rent-free. Everything from Star Fox 64, obviously. Stuff like that. Even House of the Dead 2, I was thinking, reload, reload, stuff like that. But the Bouncer, I will never... It's like an hour long, maybe 2 hours. It's nothing remarkable, but it has a really specific... Again, Streets of Rage, if it was anime vibe to it, and just the character announcements like Sion Barzad, Cole Lefo. There's no reason I should remember these characters' names all these years later, but for some reason, that announcer and his lines just live rent-free in my head all these decades later. Even if the game itself was just fine. It's not a bad beat-em-up. It's not like Streets of Rage level.
Though. Like all these years on, we're still talking about the Bouncer. And as Shellshock says, prototype Sora. Like on the box art, it's literally Sora like just putting his fists together. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. And those character designs were definitely of the era Nomura designs. And I say that lovingly. Nomura catches a lot of strays, which I personally don't agree with. I know he has his excesses. He has his flaws, just like any director. But I think he catches a few too many strays, and I've often loved his character designs, and the Bouncer is no different. There's, no one who does character design quite in the way he does it. And this game is just pure early 2000s, just Nomura vibes, man.
Yeah. I want to shout out a hidden gem for the West. It's definitely not a hidden gem in Japan. In fact, it's probably one of the most prolific games that released on the system in Japan, but we never got it. Dragon Quest V for the PlayStation 2.
Oh, yeah.
They completely remade it in 3D polygonal graphics, and it's kind of like a low poly take, which is really nice when there's a lot going on, because the scale is unlike anything else in the system. Like it can pull the camera back to reveal like a ship sailing away, and it gets so much there on screen. The soundtrack is fully orchestrated.
Nice.
And because it's low poly, the load times are like next to non-existent, so just getting into a battle is super quick, and the enemy character models are really nice. It's one of those games where like you can press like L1 and R1 to rotate the entire camera, but it's meant to like be seen from. It's isometric, so it's that kind of vibe where it's like Xenogears almost, where you have to like rotate the entire environment around.
Right.
And it's just a really cool version of that game. I don't necessarily think it's better than the DS version, but it's a really neat way to play. And it's such a shame this was never localized, because it's one of the best RPGs ever made, and a really neat version of it, with some of the best presentation that they've ever done. So yeah, this is definitely something. There's a great fan translation out there as well for those who want to give it a go. But I would highly recommend trying this out. Either this or the DS version, or both.
Man, that's so cool. I was it took me a little bit longer to get into Dragon Quest than I was a Final Fantasy kid growing up. So unfortunately, my first experience with DQ was the PS1 version of Dragon Quest 7 or Dragon Warrior 7, and that is not a great entryway into the series. So it was a little bit. It would be a few good years, or maybe a couple of decades, before I got into Dragon Quest proper with 11, and then I've gone back since and played like 7 Reimagined and 3 HD2D. So I'm working my way back into the series retroactively. So at the time, though, I would not have known or realized, I think, that, or paid attention to there being a bespoke PS2 version of DQ5. But I've always heard that 5 is like one of the most important and beloved games in the series. And so I hope to experience it someday in remade form going forward. I don't know if the PS2 version will be the way to do it, but I think today is my first time learning that there was a bespoke PS2 version that doesn't exist.
So I guess just to explain Dragon Quest V a bit more, because we haven't really touched on it. Dragon Quest V, what makes it distinct is there's two different things. There's family ties, so your party is just your family. So you start off with you and your dad, and then as time goes on, is you, your wife, and your kids. But there's a part in the middle of the game where it's just you with nobody else, and your party becomes monster collecting. So and this is before Pokemon. So before, Shin Megami Tensei was doing monster collecting before that, but this is the game that really popularized it for, just a mainstream. So you're able to just go into any battle, and there's a chance that you could have recruited any monster that was in there. So you can get a party with a Saber Cat or a Slime or whatever else. And the mix of different abilities and the parties you can put together, it's really robust. And there's so many heartwarming moments in DQ5. But yeah, this is one of the coolest ways you can play it.
Yeah, I've always heard it's just one of the most beloved games in the series, and it's high on my list when it is eventually. I'm sure another remake is coming. It will. It seems like it's just a matter of time. But yeah, that's cool. I learned something today about DQ5 that I didn't know in terms of there being a PS2 version.
Yeah, but throw us another one, Ash.
All right, my list is starting to get a little short now, and I still have 2 RPGs to go. So I'll do an RPG. Or another RPG, I should say. And for this one, I'm going to go with the more well-known one, but I want to talk about, I'm not sure how well it's known, just how damn good it is. Okay. And that is Xenosaga Episode 3, also Sprach Zarathustra. If you love Xeno games or JRPGs, period, you have to play this game. This is, I shit you not, one of the best JRPGs on PS2, period. And this is a game known for its wide variety of top-tier JRPGs. Xenosaga 3 stands proudly among them. And that, I wouldn't blame you for doubting me. Xenosaga 1 was fine. Xenosaga 2 was we don't talk about 2 as much. But Xenosaga 3 is not just a return to form. It is like that and then so much more. And especially given that they were, having to deal with the mandate of taking what was supposed to be a 6-episode story, and they basically chopped it in half and said, nah, sales aren't there. You got to end it at 3. They did a remarkably good job of making it feel like a real, true ending, like a satisfying ass ending. And that comes alongside the best battle system in the series thus far. It's got, like, Xenosaga 1 had these ultra kind of like chibi, deformed-ish character models. Xenosaga 2, I think, in my opinion, course-corrected way too much into making them look like these awkwardly, realistically proportioned character models. And then 3 hits just that perfect vibe, or that combination of the first 2 games, and produces the best Xenosaga art style out there. It's got an amazing soundtrack. And as I said, man, it does an amazing job. If you're following the story closely, it does an amazing job of cutting it in half and still making it feel like a really satisfying ending.
And I think this is still a hidden gem, because people know
think so?
People know Xenosaga, but have people played it? Especially 3 with how expensive it is. I know Natalie in chat was playing through all of them, so that's a fantastic example. But most people, I think, know it from association to Xenoblade. But in terms of, having that hands-on experience, I think that's pretty rare.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, I feel like Xenosaga is kind of like the weird, like, hidden middle child between Xenogears and Xenoblade, right? It's like, a lot of old heads, or, like us, we love Xenogears, or just people who love the Xeno games, I feel like have often gone back and played Xenogears more than they necessarily have the Xenosaga games. And it's hard to say why that is, because Xenogears is also locked to its origin platform, just like Xenosaga is. And I do admit it's a bit of a tall order getting through 1 and 2 by today's standards. They're a bit janky. Not very well paced. Xenosaga 2, in my opinion, has an aggressively annoying battle system. Yeah. But man, if you can get through them gameplay wise, enjoy the story, enjoy the build up to what 3 brings to the table, you are in for one of the best rides ever. If you can just get to 3, it's so worth it and so good. It
is the ultimate payoff. Absolutely. Yeah. I know you're going to mention another RPG, and there's 2 that I can think of actually. So I think I think I have in mind what you're going to say. So I'll say what I think you won't say.
Okay.
I'll go with Wild Arms, which I don't think was going to be your example, right?
Okay. Yeah. I actually am glad you brought that up, because I had forgotten about Wild Arms, but yeah, I'm glad you brought it up.
There were a bunch on PS2. So we had 3, 4, and F. F was like a remake. 4's fine. 3 though. 3 is super good. 3 is my favorite one.
Wild Arms 3 is so cool. I love it. Yeah, I love that game.
Yeah, and this is probably one that needs a little bit of explaining. I don't think Wild Arms is as widely known as it used to be. It's a JRPG in the Wild West, basically. So you do like regular sort of turn-based combat, but you're gunslinging. So everyone has all these different Western themes. The soundtrack is made up of whistles and harmonicas. It's really, really distinct. And you've got these kind of drab environments, but made up for with really colorful characters that bring this injection of energy to all these Western tropes. And beyond just sort of being in the West, there's also an injection of kind of a little bit of sci-fi in areas. It gets a little bit modern at times as well. So you just get this fantastic blend of different styles. And 3, I think, it's got some of the best characters. The scope from going to PS2 is much wider. You can go around the entire overworld on the back of a horse, and it's just really, really neat. I think this is... I used to associate this as like an essential PS2 game, but I don't think that's really the case anymore. I think it's kind of getting a little bit forgotten.
It is, which is a shame. I mean, Wild Arms never quite broke into the JRPG mainstream, obviously, but they were still really fun, interesting games to kind of interface with on their own terms, right? And my introduction to the series is Wild Arms 2, because I was looking for a game, and I'll be honest, I was looking for a game just to get me through the last couple of months' wait for Chrono Cross, because I was like so excited for Chrono Cross. So I was like, I just need something to fill the gap, and I had just finished Threads of Fate, and I was like, okay, I need something to get me through from Threads of Fate to Chrono Cross, and Wild Arms 2 is it. And I ended up really falling in love with Wild Arms 2, enough so that I played Wild Arms 3 as well. And I'm right there with you. It's very underappreciated. I love the character designs, particularly the main character, Virginia. I think she was really cool.
Yes.
I think I go back and forth between 2 and 3 being my favorite. It's really hard, but I so agree that Wild Arms 3 is such an underappreciated gem for the PS2.
Absolutely. But I have a feeling you're going to say Shadowheart, right?
You got me. I could not possibly get through this video without talking about these amazing RPGs. Now, this is technically, there are 3 games in the series. There's the original, Covenant, and Shadowhearts from the New World. For these purposes, I'm really just talking about the first 2 games. The third one's fine. It's standalone, but the first 2 are connected inextricably. Like, you have to, if you play one, you have to play the other because they're so linked and tell a very complete story between them. But the setting and the atmosphere of these games are so cool because they're essentially like gothic horror JRPGs that take place like in an alternate version of real world history. That like the early to mid 1940s against the backdrop of like World War II, and it's just really interesting because it's basically you're taking all these really macabre horror vibes and marrying it with JRPG gameplay, but also there's a little bit of Paper Mario in there because you've got like these action commands, but they're not necessarily ones you're timing per move. There's something called the Wheel of Judgment, where there's a needle that spins around this wheel, and depending on the attack or the move you're trying to use, there will be either more forgiving or less forgiving spaces where you have to time the needle to land on the wheel, and if you miss, your attack or your ability misses. But if you land it and the part of the wheel that's lit up, you either get a regular attack or a regular effect or a critical effect if you hit it just perfectly. And so it just kind of adds like a really nail-bitey element to the combat where you know what you want to do and you know what I would ideally like to do and pull off in fights, but it also comes down to, can you time the Wheel of Judgment right to actually carry out what you really want to do? And so beyond the fact that it's like a horror RPG series, takes place in an alternate version of real world history, you've got these really cool fleshed out characters. Yuri, the main character, has a lot of really kind of maybe dark, edgy humor for its time, but I think it stands the test of time and still works today. It's kind of a different sort of protagonist that he's not your typical brooding, edgy. He's not a squall. He's more abrasive than that, and he's very quippy. Gets some really cool quips off toward the villains, and before you know it, you finish the first game. Then you go on to the second. Everything gets even better, and before you know it, you're just really immersed in this 2-game story that just goes full circle and tells what I think is still one of the best, most enduringly memorable stories in any JRPG in the PS2, and there's again nothing like them because they take place amidst that horror backdrop, right?
Yeah, I will 100% agree. And when Sony killed Japan Studio, that meant they weren't going to work with the Wild Arms developers anymore, and Shadowhearts was somewhat, in that kind of connection as well. And they both formed a Kickstarter for successors. So some point in the future, we're getting Wild Hearts, and so we're getting one together. Wild Arms and Shadowhearts successors, which is lovely. At some point, let them cook.
Yeah, these games are so good, man.
Yeah. So I've not got a whole lot left either, but I will go with. I'll shout out this one here, which Bloops actually got me onto, who's a good friend of the channel. It's called Roadtrip Adventure. And if you look at like screenshots of it, you're going to think this is like a low-budget racing game. Nothing that special about it, right? But it's kind of the PS2's like Forza Horizon, where it's like a car RPG. You go around this open world, and there's quests for the cars. Like there's towns. There's this whole robust like ecosystem. I guess a bit more like Mario Kart World, but with more to do. And you're able to go around and like level up your car, get new components, customize it, and like the racing itself is fine. Like the racing's okay. When you get to the racetracks and you've customized yourself and you've got a good car, you've got a pretty good system there. But it's just the ambition of that world that really sets it apart. And I had never heard of this game until like a year ago when Bloops mentioned it, and I immediately checked it out, and I thought it was just really cool. And it's something you put a lot of hours into as well.
I did not know about this game at all. I'm watching some footage right now, and I can totally see what you mean of it being like a really... I mean, I hate to say early Mario Kart World because this came first.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
if anything, Mario Kart World's a really super refined version of Roadtrip Adventure, right? But no, this is really ambitious for its time. Like I said, I'm watching some footage now. This is really neat.
Yeah, like, is it visually amazing? Is the driving the best on the system? Like, no to both of those. But yeah, what it does do is really unique. Even in the age of like hub-based races like Mario Kart World and Forza Horizons, there's still nothing that's quite like what this one's doing.
Yeah. And there's like fast travel. You can warp to cities you've visited. There's a whole world map, like you were saying. Wow, yeah. I have never heard of this game before today. Yeah. That's so cool.
So big up for Roadtrip Adventure.
yeah, exactly. All right, well, I've only got 2 more myself. One that I think qualifies as a true hidden gem, and one that maybe by today's standard doesn't. So I'll start with the one that maybe doesn't, so just so I don't end off on a disappointing note. But tell me if this counts or not. I still have to say it. Klonoa 2. It's Klonoa. I have to say it. It's not as hidden as it used to be. It's kind of... Okay, good. It counts. So, like, Klonoa just got a collection a few years ago, so more people have played it now than did before. But y'all know I'm a huge Klonoa fan, and I played Klonoa 2 back on its day on the PS2 because I was a Klonoa fan even back then after having played the original. And I still, to this day, go back and forth on which game I love more. They're both fantastic. Klonoa 2 has one of my favorite opening stages, I think, in any game ever. The atmosphere with like
stunning.
The rain-soaked coast.
I'll just say as well, like
perfect.
The remake, it's nice that it's made it available, but I don't think it really conveyed what the original looked like.
I agree.
It gives it very flat lighting. On PS2, like you're going through with this heavy rain, thunderstorms in the background, very contrasted colors. It's another level in artistry. Compared to the
original was a lot moodier, I think, in terms of like you said, the colors and the atmosphere. It's still worth playing the remake version. If that's the only version you can play, still do play it. It's a wonderful platformer. But yeah, this is just one of the best platformers on PS2, and frankly, one of my favorites ever, regardless of system. And no one does atmospheric, moody, I dare I say it, emotional platforming like Klonoa. Klonoa, as you know, John, goes places. I mean places with a capital P. It gets dark. Like, you would not expect a platformer starring such a cute character to get as dark as it does. And Klonoa 2 and 1 both really go places. But that's one of the things that makes it so just uniquely endearing, in my opinion. And the soundtracks are great, too. And this is just a game... I'm glad it's available to more people now via the Fantasy Reverie collection. But yeah, of course, as you were saying, the remakes don't quite get the tone right in terms of the visual presentation compared to the original.
Exactly. But yeah, Klonoa 2 is still one of the greats. So give it a go no matter where you play it.
Hell yeah.
I think I may only have one more game that we haven't talked about, which is a nice mix for where you are as well.
All right.
So I'm going to go with Ribbit King. Do you know what Ribbit King is?
Ooh, I feel like I've heard of this. Let me look it up.
Yeah, so this is kind of a golf game. They don't call it golf, they call it something else. But basically the golf balls are frogs.
Nice.
And you've got like a little hammer. And instead of swinging at the frog, like you kind of bop it on the head with your power gauge. And instead of needing to get into the hole immediately, there's points all the way around the stage. And it's about collecting as many points before you get to the hole. But kind of like Gitaroo Man, there's a whole story behind it, like animated cutscenes behind everything, and they're really funny. Like an early one, you find like your next rival, and they think it's a fighting game. It's like a fighting game bar, like a health bar appears above their head, and like, we're here to play golf, man. And so he like just goes over there. But it's of that era where sports games were more than just, here is the sport, play it endlessly. There's an adventure mode and a story behind it, and there's a lot of charm and just character. Natalie says it's also on GameCube. Also on GameCube as well. Play it there if you can. But it's just a really odd, little, funny, chaotic, iconic game. It's one that I've played a whole bunch, but I don't hear it discussed that often.
Yeah, well, so I'm looking at some footage right now, and I thought I was losing my mind because the first thing I saw was published by or licensed by Nintendo. I'm like, wait a minute. PS2, and I saw it's the GameCube version, so I was like, okay, that makes more sense. But then I just clicked to a different, just a random timestamp, and I've got what looks like, dare I say it, penis-looking creatures carrying the frog ball to victory.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah. This looks like something I'd totally vibe with. It just looks weird as hell. And in that very... Yeah, like that kind of, as you were saying, like Gitaroo Man, chaotically weird-looking energy.
As Aramis says in our live audience, they call it froth. That's right, not golf.
Froth. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. This was
I
the...
think I've heard of this in terms of the name, but I don't think I've ever actually seen footage of it, but this seems like something I could get down with.
Yeah, this was the era of weird little games. We're in the modern age, like anyone can put anything on the eShop or whatever, but you know, you had to really go out there on PS2 to be on store shelves, and some developers just did the strangest things to stand out, and a lot of them pulled it off, like Ribbit King does. But I think that's the last thing I have to mention. It sounds like you have one more of your own.
I have one more, and I guess we'll actually, this is actually perfect. We'll bring things full circle, because this is another game published by Eidos under their Fresh Games label, same as Mr. Mosquito, which is what we started the video with. So seems fitting that we end with another one of those Fresh Games titles, and that is Mad Maestro. Unsurprisingly, it's a rhythm game, so of course I'd be talking about a rhythm game as my last one, but this one was interesting. It never quite caught on, I think, into like the cult favorite zeitgeist like, you know, Gitaroo Man and Parappa did, but this is a pretty unique title in its own way, because it actually takes advantage of the pressure sensitivity feature in the PlayStation 2 controller.
Yes.
So you can, like, the buttons on the PS2 respond to 3 different levels of pressure. And not very many games actually use that feature, but Mad Maestro did. And so you're not just, like, matching the beat to the rhythm and, you know, like playing your typical beat matching game, but you actually do have to press each button at a different pressure level to, you know, pass stages and get your best scores and such, which makes it just kind of unique in its own right. Thinking back and playing it myself, it's not like the best rhythm game out there. It's not something that, like, again, stuck with me in quite the same way as Gitaroo Man did, but it's another one of the games in that era of, as you said, John, weird little games. And it's just kind of weird. It's kind of wacky, cozy in that way, because it's just something you're not really going to play anywhere else. And I think it's pretty cool just for the fact that it uses a feature of the PS2 controller that a lot of people don't even realize it had.
I'd love to explore that as another topic, to be honest, because there's so many games that do that, and people just don't know. Like in GTA, like the X buttons accelerate, because it was before triggers were, you know, the pedal. And if you hold it harder, you will go faster. And I remember at the time people were like, oh, you've got to press it harder to go fast, and they're like tricking themselves to thinking that's actually what you've got to do. Like, you have to hold it down. But in reality, that is true. You do hold it down to go faster. Like in MGS, if you like held it a little bit, you'd pull out your gun, press it all the way, you'd shoot. Right. Yeah, there's some really cool games that did use them. I'd love to explore that more. But yeah, this is a really, really cool one, and it's unlike any other rhythm game out there because of those face buttons. Yeah. Yeah, but I think that's like 20 PS2 hidden gems that we've shouted out.
I think so. How do we both bring the same exact number of games? That's wild.
I know. I think the only other game that you mentioned that I also had on my list might have been Mr. Mosquito. Otherwise, I think we had completely and God Hand.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's pretty great, though, that we had so little crossover between us. That's pretty neat.
Yeah. But anyway, there's a lot more on PlayStation 2, so please shout them out in the comments. If this does well, maybe there'll be another one, because of course PS2's flooded with hidden gems. There's plenty for us to discover, plenty for you to discover, and hopefully we said something in this video that you've never heard of, and you'll check out. But anyway, thank you, and if you want to join that little box down there that's currently shouting out games, there's some cool picks there that I've played before but didn't mention here, so check those out as well. But you can by joining us on Patreon in the live audience tier, and you can just watch any discussion that we record live as we do them. But until then, everybody, we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.